Hey, welcome to Toy Collecting Then and Now. Today we're going to be talking about Rebels. And I'm not talking about the Rebel Alliance itself, I'm talking about the TV show Rebels. If you have not seen this show, you need to see it. It's on Disney Plus right now. You can go back and you can see all the seasons. But basically they bring in, it's basically, kind of the early days of the Empire. And it's kind of the beginnings of the forming of the Rebel Alliance. And there's, of course, different factions of the Rebel Alliance, and you actually get to meet some of the characters that you see in some of the other movies in this, and you actually get to meet Grand Admiral Thrawn, who, if you've seen The Mandalorian, you see in the Ahsoka episode, at the very end of the Ahsoka episode, she's talking to the lady like, where's Grand Admiral Thrawn? Well, in Rebels, you get to meet who Grand Admiral Thrawn is, and hopefully in the Ahsoka show, once that comes out, we will see Thrawn, because that would be amazing to have a live-action Thrawn. And, basically when Disney bought Star Wars, we were super disappointed that they kind of scrapped all the old storyline because, that meant scrapping Thrawn. But Thrawn was one of the few characters that got to survive the purge of the old storyline. So yeah, let's just get to business here. I'll show you a bunch of the Rebel stuff. This is actually the only Funko Pop I have for Rebels. This is Ezra Bridger, and he is the young Jedi Padawan that you get to meet in Rebels. And when Order 66 happened, I think his master got killed. And then eventually, what was it? Or maybe he wasn't even a Jedi yet. Maybe he just wasn't even, they didn't even know he had the Force. But he's on his own planet, and Empire comes, and they think he discovers he has the Force, and then he's discovered by Kanan Jarrus. And Kanan Jarrus is the Jedi in the show Rebels that basically trains Ezra how to become a Jedi. And Ezra has a really cool lightsaber compared to like other lightsabers you see before, because Ezra's lightsaber also doubles as a blaster. So it's like he's got a blaster on it, and it also pops up a lightsaber blade. So it's pretty awesome. You can kind of make that out there. You'll see there's this lightsaber blade, and see how it has kind of a handle coming off of it. Well, it shoots little bolts out of kind of the tip. They kind of come out like this, out of the side of the handle there for this lightsaber. So that was a pretty cool idea they had. Made a bunch of different Rebels Funko Pops, but that's the only one that I have. Let's go on to... so Rebels was big enough at the time where it actually had its own series of toys that came out. I don't have very many of those ones, but I do have a couple. And you actually got to meet a new kind of droid. This was Chopper. He's kind of like an R5 droid, but he was shorter. A little stubby, little short R5 droid. So he was but he had a big personality, which he made up for. And then we had, so there's a bunch of different side characters. And it was awesome at the time when they were still making, cool Star Wars figures for these different series and shows and movies, because, they had more stuff for this Rebels show than they made for Episode 9, which is non-existent. I mean, they hardly made anything for Episode 9. But this was some... cartoon Wookiees that appeared in the show. So that was kind of cool to see, different Wookiees pop up in different timelines. And then they had this guy. This guy was an Atdp Driver. And if you don't know what an Atdp Driver is, it's actually an all-terrain, attack thing like the ATST. Kind of a two-legged walker, but it was kind of more of like a chicken walker, where it was kind of more tall. And this is what it was. So this is the Atdp. And they actually had taller legs, and they're kind of slimmer, and they're kind of more angular. And yeah, they're pretty cool. And you see these a bunch in the Rebels cartoon as the Rebels fight against them. Pretty awesome vehicle. And these are the guys that drove them. And it was kind of a new take on a Imperial that you hadn't seen before. So that was another good thing about Rebels, is they busted out a bunch of different kind of new Imperials and Rebels and all sorts of new characters that we all ended up liking and enjoying. But after that, Rebels line of toys kind of went away. It was right about the time that Episode 7 was coming out. So in Episode 7, they kind of bled in some of the Rebels figures when they were basically making new stuff for Rebels. They kind of put it into the Episode 7, The Force Awakens line. And this is one of the ones that they did. This is Ezra Bridger, again. And there's his, like I said, the lightsaber that's also doubles as a blaster. So that was kind of cool. And he's got kind of cool blue hair. And he was on a speeder bike in this thing. But, I'm not sure if this thing's worth anything quite yet. But I just thought it was cool at the time, so I picked it up. And then also from the Rebels line of toys, they had this thing. And this was a different kind of TIE fighter that you hadn't seen before. This is a TIE Advanced prototype. So it kind of had rounded wings on the sides. And this actually one in particular was a Target exclusive. I mean, you could buy the same one, same kind of box, but it didn't come with this guy. And this was the Grand Inquisitor. And another cool thing about the Rebels is you got to meet the Inquisitors, and they were basically dark Jedis, or Jedis that kind of like turned to the dark side to help hunt down the rest of the Jedis. And this was the Grand Inquisitor's TIE Interceptor, not Interceptor. So yeah, so this was the Grand Inquisitor's TIE Fighter. Pretty cool vehicle. Never opened it up. You know, I think I gotta end up selling most of my stuff anyway. So, but the good thing I kept this one in the box. I'm not even sure how much it's worth right now, but hopefully it's worth a little bit more than what I paid for. And then moving on back to the episode 7 stuff. So in the episode 7 stuff, you also saw more Rebels. Here's another Ezra. Of course, this cool lightsaber, but this one was different because he kind of had his little stormtrooper training helmet, and like the one shin guard for the stormtrooper in training. But you know, he was kind of the big focus in the show. He was kind of the main character for Rebels. So they made a bunch of products after him. And then we got to see, Captain Rex. We got to see Captain Rex come back, and he was older and chubbier, and he was kind of living off on his own with Commander Wolf. And yeah, they're kind of doing their own thing on their own planet. And of course, the Rebels meet up with him and then basically get him to join the rebellion. And then I guess you supposedly see him in Return of the Jedi on Endor with the Rebel Alliance fighting the Empire. And he's one of the guys. He's supposed to be one of the guys. At least they say he's supposed to be one of the guys now. But, you know, I don't think they had that idea at the time back then when they were making that movie in the 80s. But yeah, moving forward. And then here's the Grand Inquisitor packaged by himself, still in the Force Awakens line, and he was really cool because he had kind of cool lightsaber and it kind of had this disc in the middle, so it kind of like spin all crazy. And here's another one of the Inquisitors. This is the 5th brother Inquisitor, and he was kind of like a bigger dude, more of like a hulky kind of guy, and of course he had the same kind of saber. I'm not quite sure what Jedis these guys were supposed to be way back when, but as it turned out in the Rebel series, he ends up being one of the Jedi Temple Guards. So that was kind of pretty cool. But yeah, so then we see the Inquisitors also in a video game. What was it? That newer one. What's it called again? I don't know. It's lost my mind here. But yeah, we see more Inquisitors later on, and they're pretty badass because it's kind of Sith in the era where there's only supposed to be Vader and the Emperor. And, little new Disney canon. Of course, they have to have new dark, Jedi guys or whatever. Moving on, and then we went into Rogue One. So when Rogue One came out, one more. Also, we get to see Ahsoka in Rebels because Ahsoka, she was in the Clone Wars, and then you see her in Rebels. And in Rebels, she fights against Lord Vader. So you also get to see Vader in Rebels, which was awesome to see. And they had an amazing battle in that show, and of course, they had to put out a little figure pack for that. And Vader here kind of looks a little bit more cartoony than usual. Of course, Ahsoka comes with their awesome, semi-white, light blue blades. And I think this one's worth a little bit more. Just anything Ahsoka is worth a little bit more. But yeah. And then Rogue One came out, so they switched the line of toys into the Rogue One kind of packaging. And you got to see more Rebel stuff bleed into there because the whole time all these movies were coming out, Rebels was playing. In the background, they're coming out with new seasons every year during the times that they were making all those new movies. So we got to see, of course, Princess Leia. Princess Leia came into Rebels, so that was awesome. She was a young teenager at the time. I think she might have been like 12 or 13 or something like that, maybe 14. So it's kind of getting closer towards the end where Luke Skywalker comes in A New Hope. And then we also got to see a bunch of new Mandalorians. So new Mandalorians came into the Rebels show. And this was one of them. His name was Finn Rao. And I think this one's actually worth a little bit. Just because all Mandalorians back when, before the Mandalorian show came out, are worth a little bit. Because everybody liked to kind of build armies of Mandalorians. And then we had... here's Kanan Jarrus. So he was Ezra's Jedi Master. And of course there's a bunch of episodes where they are in disguise, infiltrating the Empire. So here's Kanan in a Stormtrooper outfit. Kind of looks like a Stormtrooper outfit because he's got that orange pauldron on. And then we got to meet Sabine Ren. Sabine Ren was part of Rebels, so it's another Mandalorian. And she had pretty cool look in the show. I liked how they had her different colored hair, different parts of different season, and kind of towards the end it was like white and purple, which was pretty awesome. And of course, cool Mandalorian armor. And she was an artist in the show, so everything she would touch, basically, she would like turn into some crazy art. So like they had this crazy TIE fighter at this certain point, which all painted up all crazy that she did. And then lastly but not leastly in those, we got Grand Admiral Thrawn. So if you don't know who Thrawn is and who Ahsoka was talking about, this is Grand Admiral Thrawn in all of his glory. He's all blue. He has red kind of light up eyes. Not in the toy itself, but, you know, kind of in the show, in the books, way back when Thrawn was introduced into the book series by Timothy Zahn. He had glowing red eyes, so it was just like, kind of like, his eyes were like lit, you know, kind of like Cyclops, but with two of them, you know. And then they also put out a couple vehicles for this, and this was Harrison Doula. Harrison Doula was kind of the leader of their little rebel faction, and she had an A-wing at one certain point in the show, so they put out a toy of her with the A-wing. And this one might be worth a little bit more than I paid, hopefully. At the time, too, they didn't make a single-pack Hera, so the only way you could get her as a figure was to get this vehicle. So that was pretty cool. And I think I showed you guys before, of course, they had a bunch of Black Series figures made for the Rebels, so that's a 6-inch line. And here's the Grand Admiral Thrawn, if you had never seen that before, in all of his glory. Just kind of have him standing in like Imperial readiness. And then they had a couple of different troopers come out, and this was one of the troopers. This was called a Jump Trooper. So I kind of had to get that to kind of go with my loose Rebel 6-inch figures. Like I said, I don't collect a lot of these Black Series figures, but mostly just the Expanding Universe stuff. So, and Rebels kind of falls on Expanding Universe. So we got those. And here's the Sabine Ren. It's the Sabine Ren figure. Her cool colored hair. And this is one actually of all of them doesn't really look like the character, you know, as far as her face goes. Because like all the rest of these figures, you know, their faces kind of match what they look like in the show. But hers, for some reason, doesn't really look like her. But as you can see, she has really cool details on her armor. Kind of painted up all different and funky. And just like she did for her starfighters whenever she'd have them. And then, of course, they plug her Mando helmet on. Now, so she's a Mandalorian. Actually, she ends up with the Darksaber, which I think this handle that she's holding onto is supposed to be the handle for the Darksaber. But last you saw in Rebels, she had the Darksaber. And you don't see the Darksaber again, of course, until the Mandalorian. And then you see Moff Gideon have it. And then, of course, the Mandalorian gets it. Blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, there's Kanan Jarrus, and all his 6-inch glory. And then, of course, there's a Captain Rex. This is supposed to be from Clone Wars, but since, you know, he's in Rebels, I kind of slapped this in with my Rebels guys. Kind of fit in with that. And then here's Harrison Doula. Actually, in Rogue One, you get to hear them, like, when they're at the Rebel base, you hear, like, an intercom on the intercom overhead speaker system wherever they're at in the base. And they're actually calling for her in the movie of Rogue One. You actually hear him like, oh, Captain Syndulla, or whatever, General Syndulla, please, blah, 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 you know? And then, of course, there's the 6-inch Ezra. I just have his helmet sitting on him. There's his cool saber, blaster, and then, of course, his helmet comes off. And actually, his face, he kind of looks like he does in the show, but a little bit off. And he's black hair for some reason in this, and not the blue kind of black hair that he's supposed to have, but it's still kind of cool. And he kind of looks like a Night Stalker, doesn't he? He looks like the Night Stalker. Just realized that. Well, just this figure. In the show, he doesn't look like the Night Stalker, but this looks like the Night Stalker. Pretty crazy. And then, of course, they made a chopper for in Black Series, and actually kind of put this out more recently than not. I mean, they did for a while. They didn't have a Black Series chopper, so it's cool that they finally ended up making one. And then, of course, with my Rebels figures, I keep my Obi-Wan. I took his robe off though because I put the robe on my Luke Skywalker that I have in with my Mandalorian figure, so he's kind of like the Mandalorian Luke Skywalker. Except for his robe's supposed to be black, so I might end up having to dye that robe black because his robe is brown. But I don't know if they even have a 6-inch black robe for like a Jedi robe. Maybe on the Emperor one, but I don't know. The Emperor's kind of too expensive to try to buy just to take off his robe and whatever else. And then, of course, to round off the Black Series, I've shown you guys this before. This is Zeb. He's kind of their big baddie. He's kind of the Chewbacca of their group. And actually, this is actually the art and what the character alien species is based off of is actually kind of closer looking to the original concept of Chewbacca. So the original concept of Chewbacca kind of looked a little bit like this. Not this color by any means, but definitely the shape of his face and his body and all that. That was kind of how Chewbacca kind of originally looked when Ralph McQuarrie first designed him. Oh yeah, and I kind of forgot this one. I left this one out. This is Darth Maul from Rebels, and he's with the Seventh Sister Inquisitor. So here's Darth Maul and Seventh Sister Inquisitor, more baddies. And actually, Darth Maul at certain points he teams up with the Rebels and fights with them. But then, of course, he crosses them, and then he fights against them. But he helps fight the Inquisitors with the Rebels. But then it ends up, spoiler alert, he ends up going to Tatooine to hunt down Obi-Wan for chopping him in half and getting his revenge. And then, of course, Obi-Wan has to defeat him and destroy him and finally kill him again. And actually, I saw something really cool about how they touch on their stances and how they're like forming their like battle in the very last duel against Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. And I guess Obi-Wan goes into the original stance that Qui-Gon goes into when Qui-Gon gets killed. And then, as it turns out, he changes the stance just a little bit to make it a completely different stance, but Darth Maul still thinks it's that other stance, and then Darth Maul changes his stance, and that's how Obi-Wan was able to defeat Darth Maul. So that was kind of a cool little twist that I heard. I think it was like I saw something on, it was like a TikTok or something like that, and there was some guy talking about their stances and how it ended up kind of mimicking the battle between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn way back in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, so that's all I got for the Rebel stuff. There's a whole lot more of that collection, but that's all the stuff that I have, and I don't think I'll be getting any more of that, because I'm trying to kind of like move out of getting so much toys, and I got to start selling a bunch of stuff. So I just wanted to show you guys some of that stuff before it kind of hits the road. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon.